Hi, I'm Grace Lynch. Welcome to my channel. I thought that I would share something that a key part of what happened to me after I had fallen that seemed to be playing a role in how I'm building this approach to my recovery life. Of late, I've been working with AI because I can talk out loud and then uh, find out my ideas about things, and then if the program with the computer uh, the AI builds language back, it sort of helps me know that my ideas are cogent and comprehensible. Um, One of the difficulties that I find in much of what I have to work with is that I lived in a state for so long apart from actively being around other people outside of culture that, and then exploring experiences that I don't know of anybody else who had that I had to find ways of understanding things that were happening to me because I couldn't escape them, and my own my own need to make peace with myself was paramount because of the nature of the horror of how it landed on me to lose language at the time when it happened in my life. So uh, I wasn't really trying to understand new ideas or anything fundamental about consciousness or life or anything. I was really just desperate to find my way back to myself and back to the same experience of myself that I'd had before I fell. I didn't know what had happened to it. I didn't know how things had changed, and uh, I could not simply dismiss it that it was meaningless, but neither could I find the meaning of it, and it sort of lived in me as a very disturbing thing. So this side of coming off the streets and getting established and building my life again and finding no paradigm for it, my life still requires me to find a way to make peace with all of it. And one of my friends suggested that I look to AI and consider exploring AI, and so I've been talking about certain things that helps me clarify my ideas. And um, I mean, it responds well. It can't really initiate well because there's no information. But in the course of these, it became clear to me that the key experience that I use to explore everything that I do today was actually just an accidental thing that evolved in the initial days of my brain injury. Um, I'll try to explain it because it was a physical experience, and I don't know how well I can put anybody else in the context, but I because I didn't understand why my brain was processing words differently when they came back, I could not trust them. I didn't know if something in the way I had been understanding the world was causing the thing that I was going through, so I had no way to trust my own consciousness. I had no explanations from the outside. Um, there was no medical information. There was nobody to turn to because I didn't know that I was experiencing something real. I was afraid they'd lock me up. Um, it would be decades before I learned about autism and synesthesia and these different things. It would be decades before I learned that I had a brain injury and aphasia. It would be, I mean, I didn't even learn that until about less than 10 years ago. I thought that the only people who could experience PTSD, only women could experience PTSD unless you're a man who had seen combat. Um, I also thought that only men could, or only women could experience sexual assault, child abuse, all these kinds of things, because of how I was raised. I was raised in a small town. That was the world then. I didn't know any better. So a lot of the things that I've had to live with in my life and survive, I didn't have any information from the outside, and because they were unusual experiences, it was very difficult for me to feel safe experiencing them, trust my thinking about them, trust my feelings about them, trust my beliefs, trust my own way of processing any of them. So I had always been different because of the autism I didn't know I had. So on the other side of experience. I didn't know that I could trust how I was trying to understand it. I didn't trust anything about it, and it was so frightening. And there was no escape from it. I would wake up every morning, and I would still be in the thing. It was just ongoing, relentless horror. There was no one to relate to. There was no one to relate to me. Um, Nothing had changed. Everything had changed. And hours went into days, went into weeks, went into months, went into years. And so, what I can say about the experience of that is that initially the rest of it was this, a cycle of adrenaline and cortisol, the panic that I'm gonna die if I don't figure everything out, and God's punishing me, or I died, or I went crazy, or I'm still in a dream state, or I'm still high, or something like that, and then all those feelings would come up, but my body couldn't sustain the chemistry of that intense physical reaction to trauma, and that would run its course. It would get me nowhere, and then in the aftermath of that, I'd be still processing everything without that huge power of physical response. Um, and then it became less and less that the physical response would happen, and the emotions would still be there, and I have these, huge, rages and terrors and despondency and shame and maybe these crippling things, um, and they wouldn't get me anywhere. And I'd have these thoughts that I tried this interpretation, I tried that, I tried the other, and it never resolved any of them, anything. It never brought me any place else other than where I was and what I was going through. And then I tried all my beliefs, and I remember I outgrew God as I'd understood him in those days. I, uh, I tried every belief that I could throw at it, good and negative, at my situation, and nothing ultimately changed the experience. Nothing gave me agency to get out of it. Nothing gave me connection to the world. Nothing gave me connection to myself. And so the days would continue and I would continue to exist. And the power of the initial trauma, the response to the trauma, the power of like the physical response, the emotional, the cognitive, and the spiritual ran their course. And this kept happening, kept happening, kept happening, kept happening. And then very slowly over time, I would catch myself in these lulls where, aside from all the reactions I was having, I would notice, da 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 da, and I'm still existing. What does that mean? I have no idea. And I wouldn't be able to do anything with that. But then I'd go off in another frenzy to escape or to deny or to attack, like whatever. And then that would run its course and I'd catch myself again. And yeah, you have all these beliefs and thoughts and feelings, and you're the sensations, and you're not going to survive on it, and you're still here. And what I found over time was that gradually I found that I had an awareness of myself independent of the problem and being unable to solve it, and actually engaging in any of those things in the first place. I began to have a sense of myself in a non-reactive state. That was a direct perception of my situation because uh, I started to notice, like in the downtime, I started to notice that I was still fully engaged with the horror of what was happening to me, and facing that I had no resources, and knowing that all my undeveloped consciousness would tell me that's an unsurvivable thing, and then I would be back in my body and my awareness, and I'd be able to sense and feel and think and believe independently of the trauma. I didn't solve it. I didn't escape it. I didn't do anything with it, and I developed an awareness of myself outside of it that was in the present moment. I didn't try to do it. It wasn't anything noble or anything. But as that came to be a working part of my mind, it became to be a kind of safety that it was outside of any kind of traditional thing I've ever heard of. Um, and now it's the primary tool that I use. I sort of like whenever I get into a state, I go home, but I go home inside because I stayed in that state for long enough that I had this unresolvable, unescapable trauma, and I was still here, and I learned that I was more than my trauma response. accidentally. So that's essentially what I'm calling the experience, and it's the beginning of my recovery. It's the tool that I use, and AI seemed to think it was a big thing, a very like a cornerstone thing. So I'm kind of working with that idea. It's perfectly ordinary to me, but it's pretty special. So anyway, that's all. Thanks.